They're jacked with Pepsi.
I'm there for the pack out. You just got to pack me in.
Committed to the bow early on. Like I love getting close and putting up.
You cover a range of stuff on here too, right? Like
We call this the THP World Headquarters.
You know, my grandpa Roy Weatherby.
I came into like that golden little pocket where there was like 4 or 5 different bulls. Just
You're Canadian? We're doing a Canadian podcast?
My name's Douglas Bode.
I'm Robbie Denning.
Roy Candy.
So what do you got going on these days?
Man, aside from crushing 60-hour plus work weeks and managing a new baby, squeaking in some arrows and collecting beavers, getting ready for bear season coming up.
Oh yeah,
here.
man.
So Muck and I are going to be heading out on Saturday or Sunday and give them a fresh up and cameras rocking.
Many bears hitting cameras already, or are you going to put new ones up?
So we actually haven't even got out because the landowners around where we primarily bait, they said there's been upwards of a foot of snow still in the bush. So we're just like, we can go in there and try and lug everything in and struggle and winch. And we've set up this time of year lots and haven't had any problems. So now that it's all kind of burnt off, start fresh and she'll be good.
Yeah, I usually wait till May too, like for bears and stuff. It's just the snow, man. It's just access, right? Like not really doing baits or anything like that. It's all spot and stock, but it's all access driven, right? Like I've went down some trails that were probably not a good idea with some buddies, and you quickly find out how bad of a mistake it is when you got to back out for 25 minutes in snow in 4-wheel drive and there's stumps on either side of roads, and not a good deal.
Logging road fun.
Oh yeah, big time.
Let alone like how you guys getting into elevation and stuff like that up there.
Yeah.
I like hiking on that in the snow. Just, sounds fun. But
Yeah,
I mean, I'm into it.
It's crazy. I stopped the real mountain like terrain hunts for spring bear because the snow was so hazardous, honestly. Like I went out with my one friend Brett, and we went out 2 times that it was like really crazy shit. Like ticks, unbelievable amounts of ticks, like head to toe, like 50 ticks each, like crazy. And then the other time was the snow was so hard packed that it was actually like melting, and then you'd bust through and you're up to your waist and it's like a raging river under it. Scary shit.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because you bust through and you're like, oh, so like I'm not even touching the bottom and I can feel that there's like rapid water moving underneath me, and it's like, holy shit, like you fall down there, you're dead.
Get sucked into that.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, oh, better wait a week or two, Pretty smart to wait a little bit.
Absolutely, man.
What do you got going on with your bow? You're sending me some speeds, man. Break that down. It's so crazy, like legit. It's like we're crazy people. Archery is funny. It's like tying flies or something like that, because it's like, oh, I gotta tweak this, I gotta tweak that, I gotta tweak this, and before you know it, you're like, why am I doing another arrow build again?
100%. I've been running tack vanes for the past few years here, and I don't know. I just ordered 100 saber vanes because why not? These haven't done me any trouble or anything like that. But let's
what
just
about in the
change it
cold?
up.
Have you ran them in the cold? Because not to poo poo anything, but I heard that some guys have had issues with them shattering if it's in extreme cold. What have you found?
I would say probably the coldest that I've shot an animal with would have been my whitetail last year, and it was around like that minus 25 C, and no issues there. Definitely not as durable as far as if you get a blow through on a target or something like that.
Yeah.
They get a wrinkle in them, and it's not like a stealth vane or something like that where they take their shape again. They kind of keep it, and I don't
That's
know.
that.
My
Yeah, I found that with the air
OCD
racers
bothers me.
too. Yeah, well, you got your excuse. Oh, I missed because it's that vein.
Oh,
Really,
100%.
what it maybe it wasn't right. Usually it isn't, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's in your head, right? I know, like I tried switching over to like the AAE air racers, um, but I was bowling through targets and they just get mangled, eh?
Yeah,
So,
100%. And actually, these things have a pretty good whistle to them. Like if you're listening at a side profile,
hmm
they got a pretty respectable whistle. So that's piqued my interest more than anything with these Super Sabers to hear the sound difference. But um, as far as bow setup,
Yeah, let's break down your full setup. Go from like bow to sight, stabilizers, all that, and then into your arrow build. What kind of speeds you getting?
I so last year I was running the Lift 29 and a half, and that was my first year going to the shorter ATA
Yep.
away from a 33 or 31 and a half or 32. And I just really was wanting it back for whatever reason, just string angle. I mean, take your pick of
Yeah.
whatever little features a guy gets hung up on. And so I ordered a Lift X 33. And I am like, as soon as I shot it, I'm like, yeah, this thing just holds like absolute concrete. I fell in love with it instantly, but
How
it
big of a guy
really,
are you, Landon?
so I'm pretty big in stature. I am 5'7", about 175 pounds. So yeah, pretty small. 28-inch draw, and it's pulling about 84 and a half pounds.
So that's interesting, right? Because a lot of guys they'll usually go like if they're a little bit shorter draw length, they'll usually go for those speed bows. So why did you? Is it just the forgiveness, the feel? Because that's what I found too. Like I've shot, I had a turbo right beside me. It's these little rinky dink things, and I'm a big dude, but it's just that forgiveness always attracted me, even though you do get a little bit of speed uh, loss.
I
But
I don't like I don't know why. Like I think the main reason going back, say 5 or 6 years, the main reason I went to a longer ATA was, you get on all these forums or YouTube and stuff like that, and
hmm
oh, it's gonna hold better. It's gonna be
yeah,
just overall a more accurate platform, right? So I went from a 30-inch ATA and bought a 33, and I think it's I think it's really got to be the string angle and just how my facial features, how it just kind of
yeah,
feels better. Um,
that makes sense.
and I
Yeah.
mean, like, I can't really complain with my 29 and a half. I would easily do pie plate groups at 100. And I think that's shooting, like enjoying shooting at long distance just for fun and practice is kind of what wanted me to go with a longer ATA just to, oh, let's see what it does. And yeah, that was kind of what drew me to it. But
And we're gonna get into this a little bit more detail, but what's that like shooting in like stands and stuff? Is that why you primarily went with a shorter access to access, or
well, it's in a tree stand in that I have actually never really ran into an issue at all. I saddle
nice?
hunt a lot, and the odd blind I'm running myself. I got 4 or 5 blinds. Muck, he has 3 or 4, so get a different array of blinds that we use primarily for whitetail. And that's the only time where it's like, okay, when you're at full draw, you kind of got to sink in your chair a little bit because your cam's getting close to the roof.
Yeah,
But, aside from that, it really hasn't been much of a hindrance in, you know, shooting on a steep angle down
yeah,
or anything like that. It hasn't really been an issue. And I guess just being cognizant that it is a longer bow, right?
yeah, exactly. But there's a lot of benefits to that, right? Like I think I found personally they aim a lot better just in general, right? Like just your hand position, you feel more solid, giving up a little bit of speed, which, it depends on how much it matters to you, but you're gonna hit your mark more. It was a little bit tricky just for handling, I found. I like those small bows. For mule deer stalks, they're tight, right? It's small,
A hundred
but
percent.
yeah, I found the same thing. It just is worth it for me as long as I can keep that speed up. That's what I'm always looking for. So break down kind of like your sight and what you got going on as far as how you have your lift set X set up.
Well, currently I'm running a QAD integrate, and uh,
Me too.
it's been okay. I ran it last year. I did run into some troubles with during elk season. Um, we could get into that, but
What was going on there?
well, still hunting through some thick timber and doing just very light cow calling.
Mm-hmm.
Hear something bust in the hazel brush and go to knock an arrow,
Mm-hmm.
and my little thumb flapper wouldn't deploy and kick up my rest. And so I'm
Yikes.
sitting here with a bugle tube and trying
Yeah.
to not clang my arrow around. I actually had to grab the launcher physically and
Mm-hmm.
fold it up.
Yikes.
So then I'm sitting there. Well, I know there's an animal sub 50 yards. Well, is it even worth me trying to pull back on this animal if I know, like, is this thing going to drop? And then you
Yeah,
get
that's what I'd be worried
doubt
about. Yeah. Yep.
and, end up planting it in its ham or something like that. And
Yep.
so instantly worked my way back to the truck and grabbed a block out of it, shot it a few times.
Damn, that's
And
tough.
yeah, it sucks, especially when you're 4 or 5 hours away from a pro shop, right?
Brutal.
And it worked great. Aside from deploying or getting it to cock up was a pain, but every like 10th shot, I would get vein contact. And
Brutal. Did you
so
figure out what was going on with that?
it got sent away for warranty and got a brand new one. But it doesn't instill a ton of confidence
Yeah.
for it to happen again. But uh, so exploring a prophecy or maybe going back to a ham ski, although
Yeah.
in the thick brush that I elk hunt in,
I don't like
I
I like the limb driven, but
that long cord, man,
yeah.
and stretched it. I know they've changed systems a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
that long spring, I've stretched it out, and then you're, you know, essentially want the most reliable rig that a guy can have, especially when you're
Yeah.
somewhat remote.
Well, that
But
kind of sucks because I was trying to get away from problems.
yeah,
I've had some
but
issues with, and it's not like a problem of the rest itself, but just kind of like that durability. You know what I'm talking about? Like just stuff wearing out. Like you
mhm,
kind of take that for granted. If you're switching bows all the time, you're kind of buying rest. But when you stick with one for a long time, you got to get the parts list for that to maintain that rest. Sometimes, like I got a knock on Elevate 2.0. Actually it was the original, and I've had issues where drawback flicks on it. It's more like a target style.
yeah,
Um, it's full containment, but it's on a keeper. So as a keeper, it swings out as you're drawing up. It grabs the
gotcha.
arrow. Oh man, in that wind. Oh, southern Alberta wind.
Oh, it's calm there
It's yeah,
90%
and
of
it's
the
just
time.
whoop, fell right off. I'm like, oh shit. Flick it with my finger and
Yeah.
shoot a mule deer while it's running. Not the best. Not
Oh,
the
for
best.
sure.
I got it done,
And
but it's like it's not good, right?
say like if you're having to draw slightly, canted or something like
Yeah,
that in a
yeah,
situation, that's where I've kind of liked the QAD with that.
yeah. Me too.
So that's why I kind of stuck with it. And I'm just gonna run a full second bow when I'm gonna have it in the truck and come to
Yeah.
grips with
That's
with that.
painful though,
But
man. That's a long
oh,
hike. I yeah, you just can't like you cannot have problems.
oh,
I
and it
cannot
sucks.
imagine getting in there and then being like, okay, I gotta leave midday, like hiking in
Yeah,
at 3, 4 in the morning, you know? Like
the worst part about it was a I think it was day 8 of a 12-day
brutal.
trip up there. And the next day on trail camera was the 6x6 bull that I've been trying to get after. And noon. And he's just, traveling the corridor. And I'm
Jeez.
like, sweet, of course you are. And he's typically
That's why,
locked up on private,
oh
but
man. That's
Murphy's
why I
Law,
don't
right?
like having cameras because like I just don't want to know sometimes. Because then it's like, oh man, I bitched out, and then I
Yeah,
hike out of there or something weird, or I think like, oh, I'm gonna change spots. I'm like, oh, and then I've had that before, where I've put cameras and I'm like 2 hours behind or something, and then this
ignorance is bliss, man.
big bull, two big bulls walk by, and it's like, yeah,
Yeah, I got some history with that guy, so I'd really like to close the deal on him next year. But
yeah, man, yeah. There's something to be said about like passing up animals, and then you start seeing those big boys start to emerge, and then letting them grow, and trying to target an animal, one animal specifically. That's really tough.
it's infuriating, especially on elk.
Yeah,
But uh
it can
yeah.
hinder your season. Like I had that this past season where you see those 320, 340s, you're like, I'm gonna arrow one of them, and then oh shit, I just passed up a 4x4. It's like, now I'm passing up a five. You're like, is this a good decision? It was pretty close to the truck. It's day two. The wife and kids are at home. Like, they're counting on me to be quick and efficient with a
Mm-hmm.
kill.
100%.
Guy is like, I'll push the limits. And then you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah. I ran into that with a draw tag. That would have been 2 years ago, and passed like a lot of really good fives. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no, I'm holding out for a decent six.
Yeah.
A third day of the season, got Buddy a really nice five, and ended up shooting a wicked awesome 4x5 on the very last day of season. But
What's
that,
this is something I want to know. What's a good five in Saskatchewan? Because in Alberta, that's like a small bowl, right? Like in Saskatchewan, you guys got some freaking crankers, man.
uh, I think he went like in and around the 280-ish,
That's a good
270.
ball. That's a good
And
ball for a five.
he was like, he was kind of reluctant because it was his first bull, and he couldn't really see the antlers because we're in
Hmm.
super thick timber. And I'm like sitting there trying to look, and I'm filming, and all we can see is brown. And I'm like, I seen him. He's decent. Take him if you want him. He's
Yeah.
like 70 yards broadside, and dropped him on the spot. So I mean, it was a great situation. And yeah, he's a great bull, a lot better bull than I ended up shooting. But
It's funny. You always you don't kill those giants by shooting those small bulls, but man, sometimes it hurts. I had that a couple times on moose where you're like, no, no, I'm gonna pass up this 45 or 47, decent paddles. No, 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 I'm not. I'm gonna go for something else. And then by the end, you're like, you're just looking for a animal. You're looking
yeah,
around.
oh, it's getting to
Well,
crunch time.
yeah, yeah. That's what it takes, right? So break down your sights and your arrows, and then we're gonna get into the good stuff.
Well, I am running a 300 spine Rip TKO with a factory aluminum insert, or half out.
Yeah.
I guess the new dozen that I got, they come with that new stainless half out. So I'm actually pretty excited about that because
HLRs? Or did you?
no,
Oh,
even the Rip TKOs come with
awesome.
those new stainless ones, which I was pretty excited about because
Like
that's
it.
pretty much the only issue I've had with Rip TKOs currently, is just those getting a wobble in them and then changing them out. And as far as sight for hunting, I've been running a Black Gold Pro Hunter 3-pin.
Nice. I'm running
For
black gold too.
man,
Yep.
it
5 pin slider. Yep.
they check a lot of boxes. this year I was close to buying a driver. I still might. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But the they're they're light.
Yep.
They're pretty robust. I mean, I've had fibers pull out
Yep.
just from going through thick brush, but I mean, yeah, and they
That's actually perfect because I was going to ask you something. So I was talking with Kevin. What is it like for shooting in low light on bears with that sight with that? Because you got the UV charging unit on the top, right? Do you still run a light on it?
so last year I didn't run a light at all on it. And
That's what I was wondering.
I shot my bear at 15 minutes left in legal light last year. And I could still see my pins perfectly fine, and I run 10 thou fiber. So would it be beneficial? I would say it'd be nice to have a light, just pending how your eyes are, I guess.
Yeah.
Because in that canopy,
Yeah.
it's weird because you get out after shooting light and you're driving your quad out, get out to the open field, and it's like, oh, we could go back and shoot the bows at the truck for 20 minutes.
Yeah, but you
It's
can't
just
see shit when you're in that tree
absolutely.
covered area. Yeah, that's one thing that like any of my friends that start bow hunting, I'm like, you got to shoot in low light, man. You have to see how your eyes respond to that and get used to indexing your anchor. Sometimes you can't see shit. Like your peep silhouette is just not
Yeah.
there, right? That can be kind of tricky.
Yeah. I actually find shooting indoors lots leading up to uh just get a good balance shooting inside in low light
Yeah.
really helps me with my peep size because I probably could go a little bit smaller outside.
Mm-hmm.
However, the light collection that I get shooting inside just really, I don't know. I find it beneficial to just be a skosh bigger than the ring
Yeah.
housing just for those situations. But
And what kind of speeds are you getting with your new setup? Like break down your setup. You're running sabers now with a wrap or no wrap?
no wrap, just trying to keep that FOC a little bit and uh, more so weight down. But then it was a lot faster than I was expecting when I shot it over the Garmin the other day, and it was cranking out anywhere from 307 to 309 feet per
That's
second.
ripping.
And yeah, and that's a 430 grain arrow, which is kind of a sweet spot that I've found as far as, you know, performance on speed and, if you do the math on kinetic energy and just the performance I've had on shooting animals with a vast array of different broadheads. So like everyone, I played the game of going heavier and, watching stuff lob in there at 50 yards. And I I just kind of like the speed, but not really going super freaky light.
Yeah. I was talking about this with Kevin actually. I think it was on Monday. Called me while I was driving on my way to Calgary and just chit-chatting with him about that objective of find that sweet spot, hitting target, like target stuff, all that. But really the susceptibility to wind drift when you talk about flight, like time of flight. And also like if you're going really heavy, and you are going to be shooting in higher winds, that back flight of the arrow really matters because you are very parabolic, like your trajectory curve is very arched. So that's where you would really have to be selective with your types of vanes and stuff like that because that restore of torque on the vanes, that spin up is going to keep you planing on your trajectory. And the slower you are, the more that's going to affect you. And they're finding that in their 3D shoot they did, Pete and all them. Just with that slower setup, it just is a lot more susceptible. Like I found with my turbo, I was shooting FMJs, and I'd have to almost do half the wind hold on a crosswind at 60. Like double,
Yeah,
double, half
gotcha.
as much. Yeah, I would have to do like maybe, I don't know, 25, 30 inches on a steep crosswind and with my axis is. And that was 535, 530 531 grains FMJs going 285, and then it was shooting 461 grain axis at 303. So ripping, but just
Yeah,
that.
spiffing.
Yeah, there is that sweet spot, right? For your draw length, your bow, how much poundage you're pulling. I think that's something like the wind factor, because you got to think like your sensitivity to yardage errors really matters. Like if you're gonna hit, like if you're shooting targets, doesn't matter as much, right?
Yeah.
But you start shooting at like 60, 70 yards, you start seeing that susceptibility to errors start to accumulate. And how I was explaining it to Kevin, we have this thing in like precision rifle, danger space, right? It's like you have swept space and danger space. And you really have to be conscious of your speeds, because it is a huge advantage. Say if you're shooting like a 28 Nosler versus like a 308, because you
She
don't like,
moves.
or even just like you could say like a 6.5 Creedmoor versus a 308 of a
Yeah.
equivalent like optimal performance. You have to be twice as good at calling wind with that 308. But in addition to that, and this is the same thing with arrows that people should be conscious of, is that trajectory. So now you have an arrow coming down on a target that you're looking at like this. But actually, if it's coming down, you only have this much actual distance that you can hit, because the arrow's now coming down. You
Hmm.
got to think about your vitals like that. So like the animal's yay wide, right? Like your kill spot up top to bottom. But when you're coming down on your target, that's a little bit trickier, right? To hit your mark. And that's one thing that if you have a really slow arrow and it's coming down on them,
Yeah, your
you're
point
a
of
lot.
impact
Yeah. And you have to be
with the
way,
angle,
yeah. Yeah. And you have to be
it's
way more consistent with your yardages.
100%. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm repeating 100% constantly.
Yeah.
But
It's true though, right? So that speed, it bails you out too. Like
yep.
your pin gaps they're tighter. You know, if you're not as
Well,
stable on your front arm, you don't have that many errors because the arrow is ripping.
and especially you would know better than anyone with how much success you've had with hunting elk. Man, elk do weird shit. They will, you know, they'll come in and then
Yeah.
they'll backstep 5 steps, or they'll take, as opposed to most animals where they'll take the path of least resistance, they'll just go and
Uh,
pile through this
yep.
hazel brush, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't pre-range that,
Yeah.
but eyeballing it, I think I'll give them 6 extra yards.
I don't know if
You
the
know,
elk are the same in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, but you call them in if there's heavy pressure, like say if they've had a couple arrows flung at them, or say like this is like your second or third encounter. First encounter with this one bull, he came right in, but he was in heavy timber, like really thick, like that. I'll send you a video. Like my buddy was with me videoing the thing, and he's like, "What do we need?" I'm like, "It's like 20 yards." I'm like 10 yards, like 5 yards. Like, there's no way. Like, you can't see. That's how tight the trees were, right? You could see kind of a silhouette of this bull bugling and raking and doing stuff. But you start having one, two, three encounters, and ended up killing that bull later with my kids. But that second encounter, when I called him in, he planted himself directly in the middle of a bush. They love doing that. They go right in a bush because they like that feeling of cover. It's like you're defeating their eyesight, their smell. They need cover. They have that
I
trifecta. They
can't
need,
see you, you can't see me.
yeah, yeah, or like I feel protected because there's something that can make noise. So he went in this alder and just like poked his head out. And I'm like, oh my God. So they love doing that shit. It's really important to be able to put arrows in little holes and
Little
little windows,
pockets of
little pockets, yeah. And even
100%.
like I think it was like one, two, like four balls have shot with my bow where I'm always crouching down to shoot through this
Yeah,
little spot I can see, and you're just looking, pivoting around to try and find and work the angle. You can't do that with a big arch, right? Like I missed a bear coming in because my FMJ hit a limb, and I was just like, I'm done. I'm done. I can't do this. If that was a big bull, mm-mm. And it was only
yeah.
like it was far. It was 50 yards, but I just didn't think that the trajectory was that high, and you'd be surprised. You got to test that stuff.
That's actually one thing I've really, because I have hunted with, say, a two pin or a single pin a little bit.
Yeah.
The multi pins, those fives, the fours, the threes, I actually found a major benefit to that as far as the canopy. If I go and range a bull, well, this happened last year. Muck was calling for me. Range a bull, he's at 65, perfectly broadside. And oddly enough, in that area, I could see him at 65 yards, which is extremely rare, if aside from when they're in a field. But all the trees are level with his head. And I pull my bow up, my 30, or I guess if I left it stationary, my 20 and 30 pin just all in the trees.
Yeah.
Well, so if I shoot, those limbs are at 20 and 30 yards. I am gonna smash. I'm gonna 10 ring every single one of those hanging limbs. And
What an awesome tip. Like,
yeah,
seriously, like a really good tip for people, because that's like probably the best gauge, and you can do it while you're aiming.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it yeah, it just helps give you that idea when you line up. Or like you said, when you're at full draw, oh, there is a hanger there, and it's at about 15, 20 yards, which you relatively would hit
Yep.
at 15, you'd hit at 20, depending on your bow speed. You can dip down and make sure that
Mhm.
20 pin is clearing. And
Yep.
yeah, aside from that, learning your drops of your pins, that helps in those situations a little bit. But if
Yeah, you
you're
need that
doing guess
automatic.
yardage,
Yeah. You need your default pin. I always test that, like a new bow build or setup, get everything set up. You want to know that tolerance of error. I'll shoot, I've said this a couple times in the podcast, but I'll shoot like 80 yards. Like my optimal max distance, I'd be shooting at animals. I'll walk forward 5 steps, shoot again, just holding straight on my 80, back up, past 80 to 85, and then see what that range is. And depending on, and I've said this before, I kind of move around on arrows like everyone else. I try to tailor the arrow kind of, now that I have more than one bow that I'm using, I try and tailor it to the animal I'm pursuing, or like if there's a tag coming up, mule deer especially, I need that speed. I want that speed, right? So you can afford to go with a lighter arrow. And I like to use that as kind of like how I'm tailoring my bow and my setup. It's a good check. I'm hunting elk. I know roughly the size of an elk kill zone, right? So I accommodate my speed and my hitting power towards that at that 85, 80, and 75. See what that variance is, high and low, what the max distance is, and then see if that's within my kill range, like my kill zone
yeah,
of the prey. So on mule deer, if that's not in the zone, I'll make sure that my arrow is speeding up. I'll do a build where it's a little bit lighter, and I'll just shoot that for the year,
yeah.
right?
Well, that's awesome because then it gives you that buffer.
Yeah.
Because man, animals move.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, unless you have buddy there sitting, well, even if you do have a buddy sitting there beside you, oh, he's at 85 now. Well, are you going to let down and, go
Yeah,
dial?
especially if you're past your 60 and you're not doing like pin gap holds. Yeah, man.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I think if you're going to be doing a 50 plus yard shot, you should make sure you're allotted that time on an animal. I guess aside from a follow-up shot, try and get an arrow in them at all costs. But as far as changing up arrows for different game, a big thing that I've done going to say a more durable animal like an elk is play with my broadheads more than anything,
Yeah.
just to make sure I have the utmost confidence that I would with this current setup would be
So let's back up a little. Break down kind of your journey, because everyone goes through broadhead journeys, and
oh
like let's go through kind of your progression a little bit of like what
yeah.
you started out with and why you're changing to what you are doing now. Because I know some guys, it's a big deal to make the change, especially when you're using Old Faithful, but there's always a reason. So
This
break that
this
down a
journey
little
was
bit.
brought to you in part by MasterCard. Um
Yeah.
So I guess starting off in my earlier bow hunting career, just a buddy, he just said, "Man, if you shoot expandables, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah.
They don't open up. They're the biggest POSs." Okay, man. You've shown me quite a few things about archery.
Yeah.
Great.
We all have those
And
mentors.
yeah,
Yep.
and you know, I think that was kind of the prime of when the Rage in the Cage was first coming out,
Yeah.
and
The
I
hypodermic and the
yeah,
trypan. Yeah.
exactly, before even the no collar stuff when you're putting
Yeah.
elastics on stuff. And looking back on those, because I did buy some of those, man, you could run your finger across the edges, and then another guy that would shoot a whitetail and it'd just be the most devastating thing ever. But I guess to my point, I kind of went with the broadhead he was shooting, which was a G5 Montec, probably the most, say, a
Standard issue.
standard issue
Yeah.
broadhead, especially on whitetail. And I was shooting a Bowtech at the time. Bought these things, okay, spin them on, and I'm shooting, and I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm hitting six, and I knew nothing about, absolutely. This was late high school, knew nothing about tuning, just extremely ignorant to everything in that regard. Fast forward, I bought a little bit better balanced broadheads. Uh, Spent a little bit more money, got into some slick trick stuff, and had a lot of success with those. The biggest thing that I was dealing with, I always had pass-throughs on mule deer, whitetail. Um, some of them you would absolutely lace right behind the shoulder, and you'd watch them die in the stubble 70 yards away, and you could not find a speck of blood. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you know, a solo the first time I shot a deer and with my bow, I should say. Uh, I'm like, well, man, shooting them with a 30-06, there's a hell of a lot more blood than this, I'll tell you
Yeah.
that. So then I started, experimenting a little bit and venturing into bigger cut fixed blades and stuff like that. And it wasn't until probably 2 or 3 years ago that I was like, okay, I am gonna settle on just buying a bunch of different mechanicals, seeing
Yeah.
which one flies the best, and then try them out on some animals. And in my experience, as far as blood trails, a 3 or a 4 blade cut, especially on an expandable, is far superior to a 2 blade. And I mean, I've seen some wild videos of 2 blades putting out crazy blood trails.
Yeah.
I personally have never experienced that, even uh, you know, really hitting them in the heart or lungs. I just really haven't experienced that with 2 blade broadheads. And then so one that I've really kind of grown to like is a G5 dead meat, which is an inch and a half cut. And I mean, you could talk to Kevin and Muck. They were there last year when I shot my bear with it, and it was like garden hoses on both sides
Oh
for
yeah.
until we recovered them. And I think that's the biggest difference. I mean, I am shooting a decent amount of, I'm shooting 90-ish pounds of kinetic energy. And
Yeah.
I think if you are able to get that penetration and utilize that bigger cut, I think it has some merit. Um,
Yeah, I think so too. It definitely makes sense. Like obviously I'm not gonna have my kid or my wife shoot mechanical, but if you got the poundage, you got the energy, I mean, it's devastating, right? Like never not had well, mind you, this past ball, but that was I hit a little high. That's that lateral line. You really got to be conscious of that lateral line for your shot placements. I think that matters more like if you're not getting an exit hole, like a pass through,
Mhm.
like say on like a bull moose or an elk, that's something to think about because that's going to be your blood trail potential, right? Is if you're hitting high, all that blood's going to go, even if you double lung them, it's all going to go in the cavity. They'll die,
Yeah.
but you'd be surprised how long a moose can run off of no blood, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one thing, right? Like if you're worried about getting two holes and getting to the vitals and you don't have the poundage, obviously we're not talking about that. We're talking about high
Yeah.
poundage, flagship bows putting out good energy.
Yeah. And yet absolutely not slagging like a Magnus Stinger, like a
Yeah,
cut on contact or a Montec like that. I've killed animals with them, and it whatever you have the utmost confidence in, I feel like that's the one you go with. My whitetail last year, I showed you a video of that a couple days ago.
yeah, carnage.
It was a perfect hard shot at 34 yards, and there was 30 specks of blood before he died.
Yeah,
And I mean, I watched him die, so I that was with a beast 2 inch, and it blew right through his offside shoulder. I have no complaints about the performance, but once again, a little
that
bit
blood.
minimal blood trail, and is every instance is going to be different. I just think when you have a cut like this with skin able to move back and forth as
Hmm.
opposed to
A circular hole is harder
a
to
circular
close up,
hole
right?
over a slit, right?
Yeah.
So,
Especially like it depends on how you hit them. Like I know moose, especially, they have that kind of that layering of hide. So
and
you like,
loose skin, right?
yeah,
It just
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
exactly.
Like I've throttled bulls, like smoked them, and not a speck of blood.
Yeah,
It's cold out. That saturation of that blood in their hair. That's one thing to think of. Like when you're trying to select your different types of broadhead. Same thing with a bull elk. Like if you're doing a later season hunt, they got a pretty thick hide. You really need a lot of blood to get through that hide. And they're running, they're moving around. That's why I've always gravitated towards like the be the razor cut
hmm
Grim Reaper 3 blade, 1 3/8 cut. I like too. It's not like, and this is something that people should look at too with the broadhead. It's not just the diameter of the cut; it's how swept back the blades are. Because you got to think of it like, yes, there's more engagement in how it's opening up and then how it transitions and flips over on a front opening blade. But you have to think about that because that steepness of that angle, it's going to blast through a lot more than and how it cuts. It's just going to cut a little bit further than if it's a really broad, steep, flat angle. It's just going to hit and it's going to absorb a lot of energy. And that's one thing I've noticed with those Grim Reapers this year, and this is because it was a quartering away shot, was the only time I've never not had a pass through, even on
yeah,
moose.
and that's wild.
That's wild. Even on moose. That was the last thing that, like, something that was like kind of a weird thing that I wasn't really sure if it was going to work because I was honestly running out of broadheads because I shot them 4 times. So I shot my two fixed blades. I'm like, okay, I guess we're using mechanicals. This is going to be a good test. I was worried, right? But just trying to put some more
Just
arrows in him,
put them down. Yeah,
put him down, blasted right through him, broadside. One went right into the dirt, and one went and hit a tree and was sticking in a tree.
yeah.
That's
What
great.
more do you want?
Exactly, right? So, as long as you got the poundage and you know the limitations of your setup, and I think too, though, like, we are in probably different styles of like hunting. It's just, I think it depends on like tailoring what you're going to encounter the most opportunities in. And like for your area, it's like northern Alberta, like it's really brushy. You do have some open ag though, and the wind is kind of a factor. And that's the same thing with me. If you're going to encounter the wind, I can't have a big wind sail. Like I'll
Yeah,
just miss, right? So though I did shoot the G5s for a while earlier on, I found that though even with the vented ones, it was just too much. Like if it was a high wind or even a moderate wind, 50 yards is not a shot I felt confident taking. We can always hum and haw and you can get closer. Everyone can always try and get
yeah,
closer. But when you're hunting hard on public and you only get one opportunity, that's going to sit with you for a while. If it's
Yeah.
50, 60 yards and you just got to eat it, just let that bull walk off. And you're like, like what could I have capitalized on if I had a little bit different setup, right? So, you know,
In
oh,
that breath too, that's also for a lot of guys and myself included is figuring out that go no go zone with that
hell yeah.
setup. If you can't suck a bull in with calls, or if you're not on his path of travel, if he's moving or whatever, can't spot in stalk in close enough, if you come to grips that okay, my no go zone is sub 70, say,
Yeah.
you gotta not just get heated up in the moment
Yep.
and let her fly too and risk. I don't know.
There's a lot
I
of variables, right? And you got to test this
absolutely.
stuff out. And it's, it's what is easy for someone at 50, that could be an insane shot for someone who's not really practicing too much. I see that all the time. I'm like, I'm at the range, putting in tons of reps. There's
Yeah.
no one here. There's one
Yeah.
other guy, Tom, old guy, shooting all the time, bullshit all the time. Where is
Yeah.
everyone? 2 weeks
It's
before season. Huh. Maybe 2 days before season. Where'd all these people come from? They're all here. Everyone that's bow hunting is here now.
yeah, they're
So, the
dusting it
average
off and
guy, like,
throwing wax on
yeah,
strings and
yeah,
oh yeah,
we're
oh,
good to
my
go.
peep's turning a little
And,
bit.
and for some guys, right on. But yeah, it is good to know what that no-go is for you. Because I know with like, even like Grim Reaper, Micro Hades, for the longest time is like 50 to 60 is like in the wind, things can
Yeah.
happen, right?
Well,
I guess it's all based around experiences, right? Like I've had arrows go sideways with a mechanical in high wind, and that really got to me. I got it
it
done. It worked, but I hit them far back. And then
is
once that starts, and oh my God, like you got to get arrows in them. Yeah, they're gonna die, but then if they die overnight, you could lose meat. So then you got to get it done. So you got to track them down. You got to put another stock in.
and that
And
shit
it's
bothers a guy. Like
yeah, and it sticks with you.
it sucks.
Yeah,
But at that point you're committed and that you're doing what you need to do for a yourself as a hunter to be successful, but
yeah,
also you owe it to that animal to get it done, right?
yeah, quickly and efficiently. And I got it done,
Absolutely.
but it's the same thing as like we're talking about, just getting something that you feel confident in and using that. One thing I wanted to ask you too is just like, what is your like approach and style? You'd say like if you were to talk about like like mule deer, whitetail, elk, the whole gamut of it. Like what is like the style quotations of Saskatchewan? Because I know for like Alberta, a lot of spot stock, big open country, big terrain. Um, what is it like in Saskatchewan? Are you doing lots of stands? You profiling animals? Like, is it more in the brush, heavy timber? Like, what's that like?
It's to speak for all of Saskatchewan, it'd be tough.
What about just you?
I do such a vast array. Like as far as mule deer, I think I've sat in one location on the edge of a berm, stationary, not stalking, because that buck traveled that little, like underneath the cornice
Yeah.
every single day going to water. So I just sat in the little buck brush that was tucked off in the side, and that would be the most I've ever stand hunted for mule deer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Whitetail, I have found the most success, especially with a bow. 100% stand hunting or in my tree saddle or tree stand.
Yeah, they're paranoid like a crackhead, man. Those things are
Oh,
just
I,
I
I
I am always impressed with guys that get it done consecutively, like year after year after year on mature whitetail because they are
oh,
freaking
it's it
nuts.
it's infuriating. I
Yeah.
remember the one year, actually, my brother-in-law, who's quite the archer and hunter in his own right, he was already tagged out. He was driving out of town to my parents, and he said, "Hey, I got like a 160 laying in the middle of this canola field in an archery only zone. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I am throwing my bow in the truck
And
and I'm on
driving.
my way." He dropped me the pin. I had
Yep.
permission, and I crawled through this. So he was bedded with the doe, and I crawled through this canola field for like 2.5 hours, and bow on the back for part of it. Then, okay, I'm getting close enough.
Mm-hmm.
Bow on the ground, inch forward. Oh, is he still there? Oh, he's up. He's up. Shit. Oh, he laid back down. Well, close it to under 70 yards, and they get up and they just walk away. Okay, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
this is fun, man. Just the most effort and walk crawling through canola. That being said, it has worked. Um, Mainly when you have terrain features that you can utilize, like drainage ditches and stuff like that, to
Yeah, so you can
really,
close the distance quick. Yeah.
yeah, with how you can watch your dog run for 3 days here without losing sight of them with how flat it is. It can be a
Yeah.
little troubling at times. But then you get north where I elk hunt and where we're going to be bear hunting. Man, it is the undergrowth is so next, like unbelievably thick, where you can be 5 yards from a bull elk and you not even know they're there.
Yeah.
And it, there it's a lot of still hunting, some calling, combination stuff. If you got a second guy to drop back and
Yeah.
you work your way forward, and but the vast majority, even what I've been dabbling the past few years, is I'm even stand hunting for elk, just because in the private areas where I have permission, if I'm not going public, you're so landlocked that you have to utilize the corridors that these elk are going to use on a regular basis.
Yeah. And I presume you can't afford to blow them out of there. You want them running a pattern, so they'll run into you.
Yeah, and it sucks
Mm-hmm.
because you sit in a tree saddle and you're just, it shit gets old, especially when you were like me, that I've talked a little bit about it, but I'm just like,
What's over
oh,
there? Something
yeah,
shiny. Is there an elk?
yeah,
Yeah, I know
a
what you
stick
mean.
popped.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Let's go see what that is.
I had that sit in water this year where, you get desperate. You
Yeah.
you're like, hey, this isn't working. I'm gonna sit water. It's really hot. And it's like, it's been 60 seconds. Wonder what's over that hill. Is the elk over there? You know what I mean? Like I want to
Yeah.
get moving, but it can really pay off. Like, like as much as I've said, like repeatedly and even talking with you, like I haven't been a stand. I've never been a tree stand, um, or blind, but when I rifle hunt, that's different. I'll sit there and I will glass and I will pick out a spot that's an ambush point. And I found, like you're saying, that's the advantage, especially if there's a lot of people around and you have some private permission. That can be a real help because that gets them moving when they're landlocked, like you say, on outside permission or even in public, can start pushing the animals around. And as long as you're not moving and you're just observing, you're just sitting there, looking the close, look at the far, glassing, staying in the zone where animals are moving, those saddlebacks, those little cracks where they come up in hills and they want to come over ridge lines, because they don't want to work too hard. They don't
Hmm.
want to run through straight brush. So utilizing those corridors, like you say, that's a prime time for ambush.
Yeah. And here it's like, since we don't have the topography primarily like you guys, you know, river edges, uh, even fence lines,
Yeah.
and kind of like you with your rifle being a very proficient long range shooter and stuff like that. That is where I found that extra yardage and having that confidence in the setup a little bit further. Because if you could sit that whole little meadow and kill them
Yeah.
once they step into, I know that yardage, it is a go zone.
Especially
You
with
know,
whitetail. You can shoot 550, 600. you're gonna start slaying some serious bucks.
Oh
That's
yeah.
for sure. Because they feel kind of safe still at 500. They see something. You got some time. That's what I've noticed. If you can shoot 500, but you got to have confidence, right? Like you got to put those
Yeah.
reps in.
Yeah. And I've experienced that a little bit with as far as rifle. It helps my old man's into PRS and F
Oh,
class
hell yeah.
shooting and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So
Yeah.
he's always like, "Oh, do this low
Mm-hmm.
development," and you get doped in and clock an elk at 600 yards. It's like I give him 11 and a half. This is going
Yep.
down. Dead calm first thing in the morning. And that's like you said, that's all like anything you do. Doesn't matter if it's hunting, doesn't anything in life. You put those reps in, man, you're gonna
You're
get
gonna reap the
proficient at it.
benefits. Yeah. So what are you shooting for a rifle? So you got an MDT hat on.
Yeah. I'm basically it's pretty much a bone stock Tika T3
I
300
figured.
WFS or WSM with an MDT chassis. So on the way,
Kind of bullet you shooting?
I am shooting a 180 Barnes TTSX.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really
And
good spot. That's right in the high pressure zone of that cartridge. That's probably like, as far as utilizing like optimizing that cartridge. I've reloaded for a few of them, and that's that sweet spot is that 180. Yeah.
it's I
185.
ran some heavier ELDs and I don't know if it was under twisted barrel for those bullets or
Mm-hmm.
what it was. They did perform decent. Um
I think it's like one in 10.
yeah,
One
yeah,
in 10.
that's
1 in 10 is the range for like that 210, 215 hybrid. You can push it at like 220s, but that's not, you're kind of getting outside the range of a
yeah,
cartridge anyway. But
exactly.
those 208 AMAXs, you shoot lights out. The ELDXs have had some issues getting them to get that max accuracy node, but um, yeah, like you say, like that 180, that's a really good spot for like that, that
Yeah,
300
kind
short
of just
mag.
like kind of like arrows, man. You find that bell curve of
Yep.
efficiency and they work and
What
you
kind
know
of speed
my
you getting?
ah gosh, I'm trying to remember what it was. It's been a while. We ran it through the lab radar a couple years ago. Three something, I want to say.
Yeah,
But
it's funny because like even with like the 338 Lapua Magnums that guys are shooting all the time, like obviously they're not it's not even economical at this point anymore.
yeah,
Like it's outrageous, but
it's
um
absurd. Laprua brass
oh
is just insane.
yeah. Yeah, I had a buddy who bought a Lapua rifle and I'm like, "Well, how much brass you got?" He's like, "Oh, I got 200 pieces of Lapua brass." I'm like, "Sell the whole setup, sell everything.
Yeah.
Sell the brass, sell the rifle, get out of that thing. You'll make your money on the brass."
What
Even
are
if you
you
did a
doing?
discount. It's $20 a shot.
Oh, it's just yeah.
Yeah, I've set up a 338 Lapua in a Barrett MRAD with a Gen 2 razor on it. Buddy bought it. I'm like, this is a freaking 20-pound unit, dude. Like,
What are you doing with this?
I have no idea. Like it's a combat rifle, like that
Yeah.
style, like that. It's for heavy. It's like you're driving this thing around. You're not carrying this.
That's what I find every time I take my
Yeah.
dad out hunting. Like he's not a big game hunter by any means, but still likes to get out.
Oh yeah.
Last year I was able to call I don't think he was particularly happy. I called a cow elk into 70 yards. She popped out of the bush line and he's like sitting there trying to dial his scope. He was expecting a 700-yard shot across this quarter and
Yeah.
he whatever smoked this cow and it was perfect. It was his first elk actually, but
It's
he's
actually funny. You're lugging around this 12-pound setup with like a
eh,
25 power scope. And I've had the same thing. I shot my biggest mule deer with my most sophisticated setup. Like this is like a space gun, full carbon
yeah,
fiber wrap barrel, night force scope on it, a 30 MOA rail, like the flat ops, angle
yeah,
compensation, like you name it. This thing is set up for long range. shoot them at 50
Absolutely.
yards.
That is a PRS gun
Yeah.
right there.
50-yard shot. It's like,
Yeah. I could have killed that thing with my bow.
yeah, there's
But
something to be said, like you say, though, like this whole Tika movement that's happening. Like you see a lot of guys running Tikas. Awesome action to build off of. You just got to decide, I think, when you're setting up your like your wide variety of rifles, when you start committing to modification and longer range rifle hunting, if you're a Tika or you're a Remington clone type.
yeah.
And you kind of got to figure out, okay, am I going to be one or the other? And from then on, you kind of have to commit because, and just if you're a Tika guy, that's good. Do that and stick with that because it's good action. Your components can build off of that. But then you start getting kind of specialized with the types of chassis that you're starting to collect and what types of rails and all this, the whole gamut of mods and like, triggers and all of that stuff. Then at least if you're doing another build or you're modifying or you're improving something, then you can kick back that trigger to another Tika or and typically and like I said, like that Barrett Amrad, I've seen people kick people's asses with $10,000 setups with a Tika.
Yeah.
Just because they know what they're doing. One man, one rifle. They know how to shoot that rifle. They know how to hunt with it. They know how to hit steel. They got the trajectory mapped out. They put the work in. They know kind of their mapping of their trajectory as far as like how many shots and their heat and their point of impact shifts. They know all that stuff. And you can be really, really successful, which is a bare bones Tika. Maybe get a good chassis like you're running MDT or you running the 16 or what?
I would be lying if I told you it's not even here yet.
Oh, really?
So
what'd you end up getting?
I would, I'm gonna just plead ignorance because I told my old man, I'm like, I want
the
a
PRSM,
semi. I want a semi. I don't want this thing to be 15 pounds.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, don't worry, I got something coming for you. So I would have to look up and I'd have to text him because I don't even know what it'd be. But
I know quite a few guys that are going into the chassis world. I've always had not issues with chassis, but I think sometimes when you get used to like a McMillan game warden or the McMillan long range mountain hunter, like stuff like that, you start to gravitate towards that. It gets really hard to go back to like chassis, right?
That's kind of what I ran into, like shooting some of his guns. It's like, wow, I kind of like even PRS guns versus his F-class guns. It's, I prefer the feel of one over the other. And
yeah, like the Hunt 26 chassis system is really good. I know a lot of guys that like running them, but again, it's just whether or not you like that feel, like the vertical grip position versus and like the bag riders. I think they're a little tiny on most chassis, so I like that extended bag rider with that gradual tilt.
Yeah,
like the
just sits a little nicer.
Yeah, like more like the ACC Elite chassis that MDT has, and it's like a more competitive type. And that's a Tika T3X, like compatible short action setup, and they have long action too. But that's what a lot of guys I see run on their Tikas, but they're heavy as shit. But they have a more transitioned, like longer spot to put bags.
A little nicer to
get
that adjustment.
Yeah, because on that follow up, even on like I have an A5 McMillan stock, and it has the bag rider. It looks sexy. It looks like it's gonna work. It's sweet, but when you put it in the field and you're shooting, and you're not using like a rigid bag that you can really grab onto the stock and the profile of the stock, you put just like your puffy coat or something like that.
Yeah,
you really got to hold that sucker into position, because if it slides back, then you're way off target. And for those fast shots where you need bang, bang, like on elk, where you stagger them, but you got to get another one in them quick.
If he's still standing, you keep going.
That's a consideration versus my game warden has a steady like a just perfectly not flat, but it's steady, the kids can stay on target.
Yeah,
My mom can shoot that and stay on target. Anybody that even on any level of shooting experience can stay on target, and that's huge, especially with like my sons who they shoot. They're good marksmen, but we're shooting 300 megs, and this is a
yep,
13, 14-year-old. It helps stay in the shot, and especially if you're a solo guy, that's something to consider. Staying in the shot,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, especially if you're hunting in that big country like you are, and they can disappear right after a shot.
Yeah.
If after the muzzle flash you're popping your head up, and
Yeah, you have to get
what
back on
happened?
target. That's why
It's
even like with my kid, I told him power down that scope, man. Get that scope zoomed up on him for your first shot. But as soon as you make that shot, power down
dial her
right
back
away
down,
because to
find them.
get back on, right?
Yeah,
It's a big deal.
and that's what I found, like shooting some of his other guns, my dad's other guns, is that bottom end power that he was running, where you when you're in those close situations, well, you're only able to dial down so low. It just I'm like, man, that Night Force is sweet, but I said I just don't think it is specced out
It's
for
not practical
it.
for all those
Absolutely,
situations, right? You have to have in my opinion, these are opinions, right?
yeah,
5 power minimum. It needs to be 5 pound power or lower, in my opinion. 8 is too high.
yep,
Those 8 to 38s or whatever. It's good for target. It's good for PRS where you got lots of transitions and whatnot. But in a hunting situation where it's very dynamic, you have a lot more chance of moving targets, freehand shots, etc. You do
yeah,
want that low end, and you want that low end never mind just for getting on the target, for that field of view so you can get that
yeah,
information because we're killing things too, right? Like other elk can be moving in. I've had that before where I'm zoomed in on a bull and I'm trying to thread the needle on a herd bull and there's elk moving around behind them, in front of them. Back that power off so you get that situational awareness.
yeah.
It can pay
What's
off.
traveling? Is there a
Yeah,
calf going to be behind them in,
exactly.
three
Zoom up or zoom
seconds
back. Yeah.
when that shot breaks? Like, I mean, depending on your shot process,
Yeah.
same with archery, right? It's if it takes a minute for you to break, or if you're a command shooter, you got to definitely check all those variables. So,
Yeah, and one thing with the Tikas though, the biggest thing for modifications I would say is like obviously you could do a trigger. Barrels on Tikas are notorious for being a tad slow. That's one thing, which is interesting. They usually are a little bit slow. Really consistent. You can get good accuracy, but they are a little bit slower for whatever reason. Bore dynamic, bore dimensions. But they're a solid action. I know guys have put
yeah,
20 barrels on them,
yeah, it's
so they're durable. You can like shoot that thing out to oblivion as long as you lube up the action a little bit and you don't get scoring in the back or gouges. But yeah, that they're wicked. I've never had issues with them shooting.
yeah. I think I have three or four of them in a variety of different calibers, and yeah, I don't know. They just work. I mean, maybe the 22-250 that I got for coyotes was a little bit temperamental on load development.
That's
If
funny though, because saying that, you're not the first one I know that's had that issue
I
because
think I think that barrel is a slower twist. I think it's
yeah,
and I think that is why I struggled so much, because I jumped back to a mid 80s Remington
yeah.
700 that I bought off my old man, and you'll easily shoot a sub MOA group at 200 yards with that thing, and it's the blues wore off the old barrel.
Yeah. I think the 22 250, you'd be hard pressed to beat factory ammo.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's what I've personally like. That's my experience with that. I've had cousins that go absolutely mental on the reloading to try and get it to shoot, but I would say like, okay, for what you went through, it's marginally better than what you're getting out of factory Hornadies, and Actually, recently, a buddy of mine, same thing. He was trying to reload and he was having a real tough time beating factory. And I think it's just the cartridge dimensions
Yeah,
and just
I
how its tendencies. You know what I
I
mean? Like,
agree. It's temperamental.
yeah, it's temperamental. Yeah, and
You
it's
go to
susceptible to a lot of like frequency and fouling issues. Maybe it's bore erosion too,
yeah,
depending on how hot you run them.
yeah. I'm not too sure that is the only one that I had that has gave me a little bit of issue. Um, but I mean, my guns have been, I will say, relatively neglected the past 4-ish years because
Yeah.
I just shoot my bow too damn
Yeah, same
much.
man. Same. Like if the kids weren't hunting with the rifles, I'd be like,
Yeah,
it's bow only for the most part. I like, don't get me
that's
wrong. I like shooting targets. I like shooting elk. I'm an opportunist. And I think just like you, I'll do what I need to do to be the most efficient to get it done. But
yeah.
it's pretty
It
tough. Well, guys, I think this is a great spot to stop, separate this into two parts. And yeah, as always, thank you for supporting the show. This wouldn't be able to happen without your guys' support. Share, like, subscribe. We have a YouTube channel as well that's rocking. Both Kevin and I have our own channels. Really appreciate the support. And as always, check out Onyx. They got a lot of stuff, great plans. They got something that'll work for you. And if you're looking for new boots this year or you're planning to do a pretty serious hunt, definitely check out our sponsor, Aku Boots. They got a lot of stuff that can work for you, either synthetic or full leather, GTX, really technical footwear. Check them out. Link is in the description. Give you a little discount from the show. Same thing with Onyx. And stand by for part 2, which will be in about a week. Thanks, guys.